This side. I am from Jiten, from Down to Earth. District planning committee, which should be formed in every district, are not working or not have been formed. So, what is the reason behind this?
Well, according to the 73rd and 74th amendments, district planning DPCs were supposed to be formed. The formation of the DPCs is entirely the prerogative of the state governments. We can certainly, the central government can certainly say that we will not release money to you if you do not constitute the DPCs. In one or two instances, that has actually happened. But by and large, the DPCs in many states have not been constituted because there has been marked reluctance to share power. The 73rd and 74th Amendment is fundamentally about sharing power. And no MP or MLA wants to share power with some other elected representative. So in one state, a minister has been made chairman of a DPC. Now this negates the spirit of the constitutional amendment. In some states, the Zilla Parishad Adhyaksh is the chairman of the DPC. Okay, so different states have followed different models, but your conclusion is absolutely right. By and large, the DPCs, and Mihir can add to this, by and large, the DPCs have really not become functional organizations. And a lot of programs like the BRGF, the Backward Region Grant Fund, is anchored in the DPC. And if the DPCs are not effective, the programs lose their effectiveness.
I'll just add one thing. I've been speaking about the minister. I'm sorry he's sitting next to me. But in the 12th plan, the Ministry of Rural Development volunteered to take a 1% cut in its huge allocations which exist, of course, and transfer that to the Ministry of Panchayati Raj. And one of the reasons why the DPCs don't function or the Panchayati Raj institutions generally are weak is that they lack capacity. One of the points that Rajiv made about state capacities at that level are very weak. And I believe that we have launched now what we call the Rajiv Gandhi Panchayat Sashaktikaran Abhiyan, largely thanks to the gesture of the Ministry of Rural Development, which has now got an allocation of 6,000 crores, which will be devoted entirely to building capacities of these institutions so that genuine DPCs can come up and function in the manner in which they were visualized in the amendments to the Constitution.
See, one aspect that I didn't touch on is I think there are references to it in the report, which you will see, is there has been an institutional transformation in rural India. Let's not underestimate the institutional transformation. And the two dimensions of this institutional transformation, one is the emergence of Panchayati Raj institutions. You have today in India almost 40 lakh elected representatives. 40 lakh elected representatives. And out of these 40 lakh elected representatives, something like 14 or 15 lakh are women. And increasingly more and more states are saying 50% should be women. So you will find the Panchayati Raj institutions, the Gram Panchayats, the Prakhand Panchayat, which is the Block Panchayat, and the Zilla Panchayat. So almost 40 lakh elected representatives. Now, are Panchayat institutions driving better outcomes? That's a separate issue. But you have today elected bodies in rural India. That's number one. Number two, you have, depending on the numbers, broadly, you have about 25 lakh women self-help groups. About 25 lakh women self-help groups, and roughly about 3 crore women as members of the self-help groups. Now again, are women self-help groups driving better outcomes? That remains to be seen, that remains to be studied. There is evidence to show that where panchayat institutions are strong, outcomes are better. There is evidence to show where women self-help groups are strong, outcomes are better. But I think these institutional transformations in rural India are very, very significant. And if we can strengthen panchayat institutions, which are institutions of representation, and if we can strengthen women's self-help groups, which are basically institutions of participation, I think many of the issues that Rajiv has talked about and this report brings out will find an institutional focus for delivery. Otherwise, he's talked about reforms in delivery systems. How do you get better services to people? And increasingly, there is evidence to show that the more decentralized the delivery, the more accountable the delivery. And the decentralization delivery takes place either through elected panchayat institutions, or through women's self-help groups, or through sugar cooperatives, it might be in the case of Maharashtra or parts of Gujarat, or milk cooperatives. So I think we need to look at these institutional forms very, very closely.
Okay. Yeah, one question. Please introduce yourself before you ask the question.
Shailesh Pathak. Minister, you spoke about the continuum between rural and urban India. In many ways, the governance structure challenges are the same because of something called rotational reservation. And capacity for local champions is not being built because out of the 40 lakh elected representatives, almost 35 lakh will not be able to run for office because of rotational reservation the next time. So, do you think now that 20 years have elapsed, do you think it's enough and let's do away with rotational reservation? Otherwise, we have HMPs, hereditary members of parliament, who do not have fresh talent coming up to challenge them.
I don't see, actually in many parts of India that I have seen, particularly in the states where the 73rd and 74th Amendment have been taken seriously, let's say West Bengal, let's say Karnataka, the parts of Kerala, certainly Kerala is one state. Two things have happened. One is that the incentive for upward mobility in the political ladder is not very great, because the real stuff is at the district and the block at the Gram Panchayat level. Nobody wants to make, the normal political trajectory is you become a local body, then from local body you become slightly higher, from then you go to become an MLA, then you become an MP. But in West Bengal, traditionally, people have not wanted to be MLAs and MPs. They wanted to be Zilla, Gramadhyakshas or what are they called? Sabhavdipatis. Because that's where most of the delivery of programs takes place. And so is the case in Kerala. So is the case in Karnataka. So I think, while it is true that we should allow, I think your question is, you should allow for people to move up the political ladder. But I think the way the programs are being structured, more and more people, an average district in India today, there is no such thing as an average district. You've been a district collector. Average district gets about 600 crores a year from all government programs, central government, state government put together. A district Zilla Adhyaksh chairman or a district collector or a CEO, as the case may be, is handling 600 crores worth of development funds. And nobody wants to give that up for being a MLA or an MP. And I think that's good, because the outcomes that you want, better outcomes in terms of social services, will only come when you empower functionaries at a lower level and not functionaries at the highest level. Most of our empowerment has taken place at the higher levels. We have not empowered people at the local. I think Mr. Manishankar here is 100% right. You have to devolve funds, functions and functionaries. We haven't done that completely. We've done it spottily. And I think unless we do all three, devolve the funds, we devolve the functions have been devolved through the constitutional amendment. Functionaries have not been devolved. Funds, partial devolution has taken place, but not entirely 100% there. The more you empower the local functionaries, politically, administratively and financially, I think you will get better outcomes. And I think that's the lesson that we learn from all the success stories of transformation that we have in our country.
Good morning, sir. I have a question in relation to the opportunity that has unfolded in relation to CSR under the new Companies Act. Can we not look at that as a unique opportunity where we can bring in the private sector, sensitize them, bring in their skills and also their engagement in the projects in the rural social infrastructure area? But this is where we would be able to link all sides. It's not just the moolah issues that we, as you mentioned, but the skills and capacity building. And that will also bring in the younger generation into the mainstream, and they will take back to the private sector and other economic activities that they are doing.
My name is Sandeep Das. I work for Financial Express. As we talk of convergence, don't you think time has come to merge Ministry of Panchayat into Rural Development Ministry? Because it was created out of exigencies to accommodate one of your cabinet colleagues. First question. The second question is don't you think today the Sarpanch, as the workload of Sarpanch is too high, and in terms of facilities given to him or her, is hardly anything is given to him. So, thank you.
मेरा एक सवाल है. मैं पोपटराव पवार, पंचायत सरपंच, हिवरे बाजार, महाराष्ट्र. एक सवाल मेरा ये है कि आप बहुत सारी स्कीम, इंडिविजुअल स्कीम्स, अभी नरेगा हो, IWMP वाटरशेड प्रोग्राम हो, या फूड सिक्योरिटी मिशन भी आ रहे हैं, लेकिन आज ग्राम सभा की हालात हम देखेंगे तो लोग ग्राम सभा सारी ऑन पेपर ऐसी ही चलती. तो क्या आप इंडिविजुअल स्कीम को ग्राम सभा के अटेंडेंस के लिए कंपल्सरी कर सकते हो? एक सवाल है. और दूसरा सवाल है, जितना अभी गांव से हम तालाबों से पानी अर्बन और इंडस्ट्रियल यूज के लिए ला रहे हैं, तो क्या आप CSR में वो कंपल्सरी कर सकते? जितना पानी इंडस्ट्री और अर्बन एरिया कारपोरेशन उठाएंगे वो रिसाइकल करके वापस वो डैम में डाल देंगे. अगर ऐसा हो सकता है तो अर्बन टू रूरल जो माइग्रेशन है वो रुक सकता है.
पोपटराव जी, मैं पहले आपका सवाल का जवाब दूंगा. ग्राम सभा को और सशक्त बनाने के लिए क्या करने हैं उस पर बहुत बातचीत हुई है, पर आप जानते हैं कि सभी राज्यों में ग्राम सभा को कागजी अधिकार दिए गए हैं, पर साल में मुश्किल से 3 बार ग्राम सभा बुलाया जाता है. मुश्किल से 26 जनवरी, 15 अगस्त, 2 अक्टूबर. हालांकि सब राज्यों में ये कहा गया है कि 4 बार मिलना चाहिए, पर आप जानते हैं कि ग्राम सभा मिल नहीं सकते हैं. और जब ग्राम सभा मिलता है 10% या 20% वहां मौजूदगी होती है. जो आपने सवाल उठाया है बहुत अहम सवाल है, और जो आपने ग्राम सभा के द्वारा हिवड़े बाजार में करके दिखाया है, मैं उम्मीद करता हूं कि हम हर ग्राम सभा में ये कर सकते हैं. पर हकीकत अलग है. हकीकत, राजनीतिक हकीकत यह है कि कोई भी राज्य सरकार, हर राज्य सरकार केंद्र से और अधिकार मांगती है, पर वही राज्य सरकार पंचायतों को अधिकार देने के लिए तैयार नहीं. सभी मुख्यमंत्री विज्ञान भवन में बैठकर बुलंद आवाज में बोलते हैं हमें केंद्र सरकार से और अधिकार चाहिए, प्लानिंग कमीशन को बंद कीजिए और हमको और मजबूत बनाइए, पर खुद अपने राज्य में वो अधिकार पंचायती राज संस्थाओं को देने के लिए तैयार नहीं है. तो इस माहौल में हम क्या कर सकते हैं? ग्राम सभा, ग्राम पंचायत को हम मजबूत कर सकते हैं. और नरेगा से आप जानते हैं, नरेगा से हर ग्राम पंचायत को, हमारे देश में अभी 2.5 लाख ग्राम पंचायत हैं, हर ग्राम पंचायत को औसत के रूप से 18 से 20 लाख रुपया मिलता है हर बार, हर साल. तो पहली बार ग्राम पंचायत में कुछ पैसा आ रहा है काम करने के लिए. नहीं तो सिर्फ कागज आते थे, चिट्ठी आता था, वक्तव्य बयान आते थे, पर पैसा तो नहीं आया करता था. तो नरेगा से कुछ बदलाव आया है. नरेगा से कुछ बदलाव आया है क्योंकि ग्राम पंचायत के द्वारा काम किया जा रहा है. पर मैं समझता हूं ग्राम सभा को और ये बहुत, मैंने कोशिश की है. आप जानते हैं मेंढा लेका जो गढ़चिरौली में है, आप ही के राज्य में पृथ्वीराज चौहान जी और मैं, हम गए थे, और जो फॉरेस्ट राइट्स एक्ट है उसके तहत बांस की जिम्मेदारी हमने फॉरेस्ट डिपार्टमेंट से लेकर, यू नो दैट, फॉरेस्ट डिपार्टमेंट से लेकर हमने ग्राम सभा को सौंपी है. और देवाजी टोफा का क्या कहना है? देवाजी टोफा का कहना यह है कि दिल्ली मुंबई में हमारी सरकार, मेंढा लेखा में हम ही सरकार. तो फॉरेस्ट राइट्स एक्ट में जो बैम्बू की जिम्मेदारी है फॉरेस्ट डिपार्टमेंट से लेकर हमने ग्राम सभा को सौंपा है। पहले ग्राम सभा को मुश्किल से 25-30 हजार रुपया मिलता था। पिछले साल मेंढा लेखा के ग्राम सभा को बांस की व्यापार से 1 करोड़ रुपए की आमदनी हुई है, 1 करोड़ रुपए की। पर मुझे अफसोस है कि दूसरा मेंढा लेखा नहीं है हमारे देश में, एक ही मेंढा लेखा है। 2-2.5 लाख ग्राम पंचायत हैं, उनमें से सिर्फ एक ग्राम पंचायत में हम ये कर पाए हैं। तो आप अपने आवाज उठाइए और सरकार पर और दबाव रखिए ताकि जो पैसा जा रहा है ग्राम सभा की निगरानी से जाना चाहिए। वाटरशेड की बात कही आप, हिवड़े बाजार में आपने वाटरशेड, सूखाग्रस्त इलाका है, सूखेग्रस्त इलाके में आपने हरियाली कैसे लाई है? वो वाटरशेड प्रोग्राम से लाया है। तो अगर कोई ऐसा हमारे देश में कोई कार्यक्रम है कि एक पोपटराव पवार से 2.5 लाख पोपटराव पवार हम बना सकते हैं, वो मुझे आप बताइए। हाँ, कोई क्लोनिंग प्रोग्राम हो या ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम हो, आप बताइए, हम कर सकते हैं। नहीं तो जो आपने अभी दर्द और पीड़ा प्रकट की ना, वो ऐसे ही रह जाएगा। पर ट्रेनिंग की जरूरत है। ये जो मिहिर शाह जी ने अभी कहा, हम ग्राम सभा, ग्राम पंचायत, सरपंच, मुखिया, ट्रेनिंग पर हमने ज्यादा ध्यान नहीं दिया है। उनको ट्रेनिंग देना चाहिए, उनको मौके देने चाहिए, उनको अधिकार देने चाहिए। वो सवाल पीछे उठाया था सरपंच के बारे में। सरपंच को तो हमने जिम्मेदारियां दे दी हैं, पर उनको हमने सुविधा नहीं दे पाए हैं। तो जब तक हम सुविधा नहीं देंगे, वो अपना अधिकार का इस्तेमाल सही ढंग से नहीं कर पाएंगे। There was one question, interesting question on CSR. I want to take that with an interesting question which has relevance to IDFC also. You know, now Companies Act has been amended. 2% mandatory corporate social responsibility. And I hope it will really be social responsibility. Not, doing many things sort of naam ke waaste and passing it off in corporate social responsibility ho gaya. Now the best example I have seen of the use of CSR in an organized way is in Raigad district of Chhattisgarh. Shailesh, you know Amit Kataria? Amit, who's a district collector, what he has done, in my view, is a template which can be done across the country. The IDFC should look at this. What he has done, he has created a district CSR fund. There are 50 odd companies working in that district. He pools all the CSR funds in that fund. He doesn't actually pool the fund, he just notionally pools that fund. Jindal so much, SAIL so much, NMDC so much, Tata's so much, Monet so much. Total for that district comes to about 100 crores a year. What he then does, he has prepared a district infrastructure plan. From a district's point of view, what are the gaps? Roads, schools, Anganwadi centers, primary health centers, sub-centers, what all? Transformers. He has identified a district infrastructure plan. What he then does is he sits with all the CSR guys, shares with them his infrastructure plan, and through a process not of issuing a fatwa, which collectors are fond of doing, but through a process of interaction, identifies how that 100 crores is going to be spent. So Jindal knows that his money is going to be spent for these purposes. Tatas know that their money is going to be spent for these purposes. The state government doesn't execute the works. The works are executed by the companies themselves. But the projects are identified by the company in consultation, participation, coordination with the district administration. I think this is a very interesting model. What he does, the advantage is, CSR does not become a random scattershot activity. Because as you yourself say, one district getting 100 crores per year in CSR is not a small amount. And I think that in Jharkhand, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, parts of Andhra, you will find many districts getting more than 100 crores a year, where there are minerals and power plants and steel plants and so on and so forth. This is something that you should look at. How you can not centralize the use of CSR. You shouldn't centralize it. But I think the question that is being asked is, how do you make intelligent use of the CSR money? Otherwise, the danger is that the CSR money will be spent on what the company thinks is CSR, but actually may not be CSR from the district's point of view.
Thank you. I'm sure there'd be many more questions, but we have to close the session, and we can continue with the questions over the coffee break later.